a bit cheeky, but after 6 months, I allowed each customer to bring one guest, and that was like, I don't know, 10 years ago, and these training sessions became very popular because instead of teaching copywriting, I was teaching web usability. So website owners, for the usability for them is a big thing, and I was teaching online retailers how to make the site more usable. At that time, it was a big thing. So those sessions became very popular, and we were serving home-based buns and coffee. It was all morning sessions. It was really good. So then everyone started bringing along guests, and it helped to grow a business immediately. So first, I created exclusive club. You could only get in as a customer. Then you could be invited by a customer, an existing client, not customer, and yeah, it worked really well. So I think it's a great idea. But I actually have one, well, not only one, but my main note from the book is that keeping up with today's market or marketplace is pretty much impossible. It's the customers' demands are growing faster than we can fulfill them, and it's much faster. And there's a lot of evidence in the book, and I'm actually I actually have the physical. This time it's me. I'm the one with the physical copy system. And so hold on. There's a quote I actually just skipped through it, and I noticed. I'm not sure if I'm going to find it, but it's something about keeping up with the travelers' needs. It's in terms of hotels or for instance, and it's like there's a quote from some guy named Benjamin, and he's complaining that hotels don't have a Wi-Fi, hotels don't have this and that, etc. And he makes this comment like, how can they not be keeping up with what travelers need? And I think that's there's kind of an underlying message, like customers expect so much these days, and I think it's evident. It's actually evident in the forum today. Sorry for a bit prolonged speech, but I noticed a thread about customer ordering stuff from or trying to order stuff from somebody and then finding a cheaper price on Amazon. One of the guys today started a thread, and then someone else replied, that oh yeah, it happens all the time, etc. And there's few examples, and I think that's the sign of the times. Now, I don't run a store, kind of. I'm in interim. I don't have a store anymore, but I'm going to be starting one really soon. And but you can probably see it firsthand, like sometimes ridiculous demands even from customers, etc. And customers expecting way more than kind of even that kind of goes beyond any logic. Sometimes I don't know. I think that's the premise of the book form.
Yeah, it's funny when you brought up that thread, because I was thinking about that book when I was reading that thread too, and how she kind of was basically, talking about how consumer trust is totally abysmal, and even someone like that customer reaching out to a professional or an expert, how consumers still rely on themselves really to make those decisions in the end. Which it should be the total opposite, obviously, with all the distrust out there. They should be more apt to believe a professional, but they just don't.
And we become bargain hunters. What really struck me about this book, and I know like Travis hated the way it's written, and some other people had other complaints, and I agree, the language is awful. It's absolutely awful. And Laura, I think you agree with me. The quotes are fabricated. They do sound fabricated, 100%. At least in my research experience, I've never interviewed people expressing themselves so well. I've never encountered anyone. It's usually, even now, if we listen back to our recording, it would be full of achs, the ergs, etc., and unfinished sentences. Whereas this, everyone is so articulate, and their ideas just flow. It's fake. But anyway, what really struck me about this book is that this woman is often on the side of the customer, whereas I don't know if I would put myself always on the customer side, which is I do think customers sometimes go a bit too far. They're overly demanding, overly expecting, and and whereas she sides with them, and she almost says like, you retailers, you business people, unless you get onto this rat race, this mad chase to catch up with the constantly changing and evolving customer demand, you're done. Whereas, so I think that's really my gripe with this book. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. You know, it's not that simple. Um, yeah, that's me
Yeah,
done.
she said that you basically have to anticipate future needs, not their present needs, which is
Yeah,
like it's like a lose-lose basically, she's
exactly.
saying.
Exactly. It's yeah. So that really struck me. Like he's siding with, and and you know, in consumer research, I kind of consumer research, consumer psychology is kind of that's my kind of a hobby, passion, academic hobby, I would call it. And yes, you get researchers siding either with customers or against. There's hardly ever anyone in between, like, you know, who'd say, it's probably, you know, both sides are right or wrong. And so I'm on, not always on the customer side. That's why, you know, in this book I kind of that's my gripe. Like she's the opposite of what I, you know, think or feel in relation to those problems. Um, but I think that is the problem we're facing. And you know, even like I looking at the forum, I said you thought about this book as well, reading the thread. I think it was Brendan's thread. I don't remember who actually posted the thread, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But so was I. And there's a lot of threads in the forum where, you know, guys vent off pretty much, you know, against over-demanding consumers. And I think there's a lot of evidence in this book where, you know, and kind of a lot of evidence with background why it happens. But my basic question is, and this is really, Kevin, you as I think the only real online retailer here now, is like, how do you manage it, for instance, in terms of like the book? Like, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's funny. So I see a lot of threads where the one guy was like mad because the customer threw something away.
Yeah.
I didn't see his name, but you know, he didn't know what to do, and you know, I've had people. I think I've seen things in the forum where people like said, "Oh, the customer gave me the wrong address," and we've taken all the thought out of it, and we act as if for our own orders as if we had sold them through Amazon. And what would we do? And if you sell them through Amazon, you would do exactly what the customer wants you to do, just about every time. And the reason is because it's just not worth getting into a fight over it.
Yeah.
For the most part, you know, you probably should just assume a certain amount of your orders are going to have that happen to it and deal with it. The other thing is, you know, like the power of social media and stuff. We have one customer that I truly think he's mentally ill, and he would like. His first ever email to us before he bought anything was the subject was why your site sucks, and I always read those with great interest because I want to know why my site sucks, and he had his reasoning and whatever, and I was like, okay, cool, you know, whatever that is, that's fine. Then he proceeded to buy a few things from us and totally blasted us and told us how it doesn't look like what the pictures are and all this stuff. So anyway, eventually, after dealing with him for a few months, and he would be so unhappy I place more orders, and I realized, okay, this guy literally is mentally ill, because if you're that unhappy, you don't continue to go back to the source of your unhappiness.
Yeah.
And so I just told him, I said, you know, I don't think we were able to meet your expectations in any way, shape, or form, so I think you should probably, you know, just buy your t-shirt somewhere else. And he posted on a couple of our ads recently on Facebook that they literally said, like, the owner is a heartless person who only cares about his own money and doesn't care about his customers and everything. And one of our customers came to our defense and everything, but it was like 4 days later that I saw that comment, because we have hundreds of ads, so I don't see all the comments all the time. And that's exactly why you do what they want you to do, because, you know, there's never been a time where customers' voices are so strong and they can literally like hijack your own ads. You know, like the social media is awesome because they can amplify your own messages, but it's also like you totally have to be prepared for them to destroy your own messages as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just think everyone needs to realize that's the way it is, and kind of get over it. It's okay to vent about it,
yeah,
but and like when you're saying like she's on the side of the customer, it really doesn't matter who's right or wrong, or like the way it should be or shouldn't be. It really only matters how is it. And we live in an Amazon world, and just have to react to that.
Yeah, there's few other kind of nuggets in terms of consumers. Like she says that consumers respond to just-in-time information and ignore news before they need it. So there's this: I want what I want when I want it, and I don't know how. I suppose it's true. It's but from online retail in marketing perspective, that poses certain challenges, doesn't it? If you're almost never at the right time with customers. It's almost impossible to be at the right time. So you have to disrupt them in a way, in the hope that you will be, you'll show up in the right time.
Yeah.
And so, and there's another quote I have, and consumers will spend less time exploring detailed information and will consider a wider variety of sources when searching for product solutions. And I think that brings us back to a lot of threads on the forum where consumers research a lot and then buy from somewhere else, and they it's all in a way it is almost crazy. Like I know myself, I live in, and it brings us back, Laura, to our discussion at the start. I live on a small island. There's 4 million people in the entire country. We have like 250 policemen in the country. So it's like, I'm sure for you guys it's completely unthinkable, right? And no matter where you go, you're almost bound to come across someone or someone who knows your neighbor, pretty much. It's a tiny island, and but at the same time, we have access to right now, like and because of the internet, we have access to pretty much the whole world. I can buy from wherever I want and whenever I want, and I think in that regard, it's in one way it's great, but in another way, it almost makes it sometimes impossible to choose a place to buy from, because there's so many, and I think she doesn't say it explicitly, but as I said, I've been reading and exploring consumer research a lot and over the last few years, and one of the things is that consumers start using sometimes almost illogical cues when making a selection. Do you sometimes find that, Kevin, that people, sometimes you don't know why they bought, or they didn't buy for the reason you wanted them to buy, as in your marketing strategy, but completely different reasons, or the other way around, they didn't buy for completely unknown reason to you?
I'm not sure I can relate to that, actually. Like,
probably your product is a bit too specific and too unique, but
yeah. I mean, it's such a, my product is the key to checkout.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Cool.
Good.
We covered the first 38%, so that's as far as you get into the book, right? So sorry, we covered that part already. Sorry.
Yeah, you're late to the party, Travis. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for my tardiness, and I think I interrupted Kevin. Sorry about that.
No, don't worry about it. I mean, and Pablo, I don't know if I'm going where you're going, I guess, in terms of like why they bought and everything, but I can tell you in terms of like the interrupting and stuff, what we found is I was watching all these sites come up that have like a t-shirt a day, or the Teespring, which is like a campaign that runs for a limited amount of time, and seeing really crap products being purchased in fairly high quantities sometimes, and I think what it is they had that scarcity and limited timeness baked into the process.
Yes.
And so it's not necessarily about like what I want when I want, but it's like, well, I might want this, and if I do want it, I better get it now.
Yes.
So we've actually built that into our site now, where we do crowdfunding for periods of time on our site, and it's been really, really successful for us. Like, it just gives us something to talk about, and you know, it's one thing on Facebook to say, hey, here's the Star Wars shirt, which you'll be able to get from now until the end of time. So don't hurry to say like, oh, we need to sell a certain number of these, otherwise we're not even going to make this product. So I think, you know, in a roundabout way, that's kind of like the a way we've hit that objection. So no, we're not what they want when they want, but what we're offering. If you want it, you better do it now.
Yeah. So you're taking the charge from almost like
right.
The whole process. Yeah.
And it's amazing how it works. It's like we sold more shirts of some, like the site has always been like what I would call a trickle model, which is we add products and then people find us, or they like would come back from an email that we send out and like stumble on stuff. Whereas now it's more like we're targeting with super precision and saying, here's your limited time frame to get this. And I mean, we sold one design, we were almost at 100 in like a couple of weeks, which that's not our model. Our model has always been like a wide variety, and a couple of sales here and there make up our sales. You know? So it definitely works to overcome that I can do this anytime objection.
Cool. Yeah, well, you know, that is a fact that, you know, consumers will not always, but quite often will stall on a sale, even if it's a deal, just in hope that a better one will come up. And so, yeah, any scarcity obviously, you know, makes them, you know, to kind of act and act now. So it's the urgency.
Right.
Yeah, so cool. Good to hear that it's working.
What did you guys think about her like tangents on kind of how anxiety, you know, how like the new consumer is like an anxious consumer, and you know they use online shopping as like a stress relief, and you know, did you think that was did you think that was true, that it's like very emotional and mental, you know, this new consumer, or did you think that she was trying to make it more psychological than maybe it really is?
I can tell you my own experiences, and it's not necessarily with shopping for me, but for my wife it is. You know, where she'll just cruise around like while she's watching TV, and she will do exactly what she described. You know, like she's got the iPad on and she's half paying attention to the TV and half paying attention to the iPad. So it seemed like it made sense.
Yeah, I felt like it made sense, and I 100% believe that there's emotion. You know, the most buying is emotional, but I do feel like a lot of the stuff that she was talking about, a lot of anecdotal evidence, and yeah, she was referencing a lot of stuff in the footnotes regarding, you know, other books and other data and stuff, but I'm not 100% certain that you could connect all those dots. She would make an anecdotal claim, and then throw in some footnotes and some data to back it up, but it was basically just data from other books that so anyway, so it wasn't real valuable in that perspective, but I 100% agree that almost all purchasing, regardless, even if you or the purchaser believes that it's a logical decision, which I have a tendency to believe that everything I buy is super logical, it's just bull. I mean, it's just not true. It's mostly almost all purchasing decisions, even if they're good for your business, which are most of my purchasing decisions. I'm trying to buy, you know, something, or if I'm going to buy the Karate Kid gi from Kevin's site, that's totally a logical decision.
It's so weird. It's like you were here. We were just talking about that in the beginning of the hangout.
He saw the chat, right? Did you see the chat?
I didn't see the chat. I just no, I didn't see the chat. I had no idea. I don't think I can see anything
So
in this.
weird.
Oh yeah, go check it. Go check it.
I don't think I can see chats from before I was there, before I arrived. So
can you post the link again?
Yeah. So there's one thing in the entire chat that we were just kind of like, kind of having a little discussion before we started, and this is what we were discussing. Was that
that's the one I've posted on that several times and on threads in ECF about how, because when you first joined, whenever that was, I guess it was October or November last year. I can't remember when it was, but I was checking out your site, and I posted many times about the Johnny Lawrence's Cobra Kai G. So I'm like super jealous of that. Get him a body bag.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah. So, which is awesome. So that is, in most, I think that Kevin, and I was really super interested, Kevin. I think that's interesting how when you were talking earlier about about how you were able to generate that scarcity type situation, because that is one of the things that internet marketers do really well, but us as e-commerce marketers, it's very difficult, because nobody's going to believe that, oh my gosh, you're only going to be selling this for X period of time. That you might be able to get a discount for an X period of time, and that may expire if you're But I love how, and I just caught on the tail end of that, but it sounds like you've found a way to crowdsource it in advance, and you're doing that all on your site, I take it. Or through email or something, and so they can just buy in advance, a limited time only, and you'll make a certain run, and only for people that buy now, I guess, right? And so
we have a couple models. So right now we'll be bringing it into stock at least for a little while, just because we're calling our success metric a lower number than what our print minimum typically will be. So we will bring them in, but we do give a discount for pre-ordering.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's awesome, and that emotional thing that Laura was talking about, I think that plays really well into not only the scarcity but also the emotional buy, and being getting to be a part of something before it actually happens. There's an emotional piece to that. And so I think there's a lot to that, and I think that most buying decisions are emotional. But yeah, anyway, so that's interesting. Yeah.
Wasn't Rula Lab built on the same premise, that you get that sale that expires at noon, or it's from 11 a.m. till noon, or something like that, and if you don't get in within that window, well, you're done. And I think it was something like that. I've never been on this side, but I heard it's.
They're like a flash sale model, right?
Flash sale model, yeah, exactly. I think it's pretty much lost its momentum now, but at its peak time, it was hugely popular, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the problem with any of these things like that. They do peak, so we'll see how long this lasts. But I guess riding it while it's there is definitely helping us for sure.
What do you guys think of her? The various research she cites, like, consumers, considered a bottle of wine that was, with a label or without a label, valued as X, and, as more expensive than the same wine but without a label, or, when it was on a coat hanger, or it was just lying on the shelf, etc. What do you think of that?
Seems 100% legitimate to me. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of signals we go by. Have any of you guys ever read The Psychology of Persuasion?
Mm-mm.
It's an excellent book. I'm actually rereading it. I think it was like the first book I ever read as far as like a business book. But he talks about that kind of stuff too. Like we've essentially, he calls them like click whir type of automatic responses that people have because the world's so complex that you need to take these mental shortcuts, and pricing would be one of them. branding would be one of them type of things.
Yeah,
So
pricing is big. And, she mentions a lot about price, and this story about the first the kind of a bread cutter machine when it was first launched didn't sell at all. I don't know if you heard it, and they were wondering like why. It was like $200 or something, which at that time was huge money, and then it wasn't selling. So the guy who invented it brought in some sort of consultant, and the consultant said the problem is simple. Create an exclusive model for 300 and put it on the shelf next to the 200 one. So they did, and the 200 quid model immediately picked up because consumers had a point of reference, price point of reference. The same thing is the story of the salmon on the menu. Like there was a restaurant, and they had a problem. They had their highest priced dish never sell. They couldn't sell it. It was just, nobody was ordering it, and yet they were ordering ingredients every week for it, and they would go bad, and they had to throw them away. So they brought in a consultant, and he said, yeah, just, let's put a more expensive dish, salmon a la whatever, and, the funny name, and let's price it at 50% higher than your most expensive dish. And immediately the sales for the dish took off straight away, and they said, so I think there's a lot to say about price. I don't know if you see it in your businesses in online stores, but I grew up in a retail store. My folks ran a bookstore. So at some point in a chain of bookstores, and I could see the same thing happening. Like you would have two editions of a book side by side, and you pretty much knew which one will sell better, and hardcover, paperback, or whatever. So do you guys have any experience with that? Especially Kevin, because Travis, I think you don't run you're not a store owner, right? Or are you? Sorry, if I'm.
No, I'll jump in real quick. So yeah, I used to own I owned an e-commerce store, figure skating store called Cherry Loop and I just sold it last year, so a year ago.
Oh,
so that's out. So I've got a lot of experience, but I do paid search consulting and PPC.
That's what
management.
I thought. But
yeah, and I have over a dozen e-commerce clients. So actually, I know more about e-commerce because it's across a bunch of different clients now, as opposed to just my single niche. Which so now I know I have a broader experience, which is interesting. But I think that price, like you had mentioned, in my experience, it does make a difference, but it's all about testing, and I don't know. I mean, I'm always interested in these things. Like I think it was in this book that she was talking about that people perceived, or maybe it was something else I read, but people perceive a decimal point. So if it's 13.99, they perceive that as more expensive than $14 or 30. I can't remember. I think she was saying the decimal point made it seem more expensive. But I don't. I think that all those things have to be tested as far as price goes. And then I think also there's some interesting data, and I mean it's really difficult to move this information, these tests that other people have done, into your particular products because. I've always heard that if you end a price in a 7, like at $47 or $37, that's the highest converting price. I don't know what that is. I mean, I think that's interesting, and I find that very interesting. But you have to you have to run a lot of A/B tests to really find out if something that you sell for $39 and you said instead you sell it for $37, if the conversion rate increase is worth the $2 loss, and or whatever it is, you've got to run a lot of tests. You've got to run a lot, and there's a lot of data that's got to be run in order to find out if that is true or not. And I just have never been in a situation, even because I think to get significant data, you have to have thousands of conversions. So anyway, just food for thought.
Yeah, it's also really impractical to test pricing on most e-commerce platforms.
Yeah.
And you can do maybe lower the price next week, but that's not really a true A/B test. That's more like a hope that you're accurate instead of actually presenting different price to different people at the same time.
Yeah, that's right. So you're on Shopify, aren't you, Kevin?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so do they have so I manage like 6 or 8 stores that are all on Shopify, and I haven't seen anything that can actually true A/B test a price like that.
I not that I know of either. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure we could have someone build an app to do something like that, but it might be like not even true. Like it could be like change it for an hour, change it back for an hour, or something like that. But even then, like you said, the data that you have to collect, like we've run tests before where they run forever and they start out one direction, then they change directions, then they go the other direction, and it's just testing's tough.
Yeah, testing is very, very tough, and price, and like I said, price especially. So you can, in my experience, you take other people's data and hope that it's accurate, apply it to your own business, and cross your fingers, hope for the best, and then take a look at the data, and see, and you might be able to run some mini, and hack at a test here and there to see what kind of success you have. But interesting.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. There's too many factors at play to actually, be able to take someone else's data and apply it and for it to work basically on another site or in another business. And because then there's difference in product and audience, demographics, thousands of probably literally thousands of small factors that are at play. So that's why I've never seen actually anyone A/B testing price. People A/B test design elements, etc., but really not or copy even, but really not the price, because it's really hit and miss. But I think her point is really not actually. It's not about testing the price. It's actually using some tricks and cues to push customers to make a decision, to making a decision. Like this. The thing about I think there was an example of a shirt that one shirt was nicely laid out on the shelf and the other one was hanging on the coat on a coat hanger there, and so it was the perception. It was identical product, yet customers perceived it differently, and thus didn't want to buy one but wanted to buy the other, or discounted one. There's a great book actually on consumer psychology by Michael Lindstrom called Biology, and there is another one called brand washing. Yeah, both are great, and he gives this example of and again I've seen it in working as a kid in my parents' bookstore, that many people would come into a traditional bookstore and there's a stack of books, right? So a stack of identical books, and they'll flick the top one, but when they're buying, they pick the second one, right? But those who don't buy usually do this: they flick this one and take the second one. So the first one, the one that's been used, that's been flicked, becomes the second one, right? In a stack, and there's more of them. So then the next person comes, and because he or she thinks the top one has been flicked through, and people touch them with their greasy fingers, etc. She immediately picks up the second one, and the story continues. So that, and ultimately thinking they buy this one that hasn't been touched, they always get the one that has been touched, that has been flicked through, and it's great. But and I think that's. Well, I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand, and even like literally a few days ago, I was telling my wife about this, and she says, "Yeah, I always grab the second one from the pile, or even newspaper. The same goes for newspapers, magazines, and on a pile." So, yeah, I think that's one of the points she's making. And Michael Lindstrom, he's actually a great consumer psychology writer, and he makes this point too, that we can use a lot of cues in trying to entice customers to buy, or knowing what ticks, what cues they'll respond to. We can organize even the sites or stores to increase conversion. So their point is, it's not only the colors of a buy now button or a call to action or the header, but it's those small cues that make a huge difference in in conversions.
Interesting. So did she talk about, for example, like we were talking about pricing, when I'm in a grocery store and I'm walking up and down the aisle, and if there's a big red price tag and all the other ones are yellow, I'm going to, so I'm a little bit different because I actually go and I calculate out the price per ounce just because I'm a numbers nerd and I'm like that cheap. And so, but I guarantee that at least it draws my attention to whatever that is, because I'm like, oh crap, that's on sale, and I can't miss out on that. But then I'll go and make sure that I'm not getting tricked by the tag, and I'll compare the other pricing. But I'm certain that stuff, I'm curious if you talked about anything like that, because what's interesting is that can improve conversion rates for that thing, but I'm not sure, even if I'm certain that there's been tons of tests done on this in grocery stores, but if you put a red tag or a price marked down, and even if it's the same price or it's more expensive than something else right next to it, I'm sure they've done a ton of information. But I'm curious how that plays, how that comes there. Well, I'm curious if she talked about any of that kind of stuff in the book in the second half, which I've just somehow forgotten.
She does. I don't think she mentioned anything about colors, but yeah, the placement or the packaging. So she mentions those. So she mentioned this one test where she had packaging with one logo crooked on it. I don't know, guys, if you remember this one. It was identical products, but on one the logo was crooked and slightly cut off on the top of the kind of at the top of the box, so the logo would be right, on top. And she said that the point she was making, that we pay attention to those little cues, but we don't actually remember it. So in the first test, she asked people to pick up a product, and there were identical boxes except one had this crooked and slightly cut off logo. So most people would selected this one. But then when she got them after this, in the second part of the test, she showed them only two boxes. One which was the proper one with nicely laid out logo, and the other one with a crooked and cut off logo. They swore that they originally selected the proper one, the one with the logo clearly visible. So so she basically, the point she was making is that we don't realize that we spot these, not errors, but things that stick out immediately, and they somehow they affect our choice. But we don't realize it, basically.
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion that was in the first 38%, because I remember that. But,
yeah.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
I'm just messing.
No, it's fine. Fair enough. But
I found that very interesting that people swore up and down that they chose the one that was straight. And I had completely forgotten about it until you had mentioned it. But they actually chose the one that was. Isn't that right? They actually chose the one that was crooked and off.
Originally, yeah, but then they swore.
Yeah, but they swore they chose the one that was straight.
And it's funny that I think it is actually legit. Michael Lindstrom in Brand Washing mentions number of similar tests, and with almost identical results, where people would first select something that actually wasn't right, really, but then they would swear they never did it. No, they selected the nicely looking box or whatever it was.
How I guess I kind of intuitively knew this, but I never really put it into words. But I hate surveys. Like, I hate asking people why they did something, because I feel like anytime I've ever taken a survey, like, either they were trying to put me into a box that I don't fit into, or I don't even intuitively myself know why. And I guess that's kind of the same thing, right? Like, I just don't trust that we as people are making conscientious decisions, whereas I think we're so affected by things that are at our subconscious level that to ask someone directly is pointless. And that's like, even like with these tests, or like with the tests that some of our competitors do, where like, I don't know, are you guys familiar with Threadless? Like they do rounds of voting on potential T-shirt designs, and I'm just like, I don't see the value in that. I see the value in asking someone to commit their credit card number right now. You know what I mean? But if you're just asking someone, would you buy this or do you like this? Like, it's just like that's so not a real world scenario to me. But and that's kind of like the same process.
Yeah, Kevin, I could not agree more with your idea about surveys. I've always hated surveys personally. I can't stand filling them out. But I also, from a business perspective, and I just don't see the value, because just like what Pavel was talking about is unconscious, that we don't know why we did something, and we may swear up and down, you give me a survey, I'm going to either A, lie to you, or say something that I believe to be true, which isn't. And the only true thing really is, like you said, if I'm willing to, lay down my credit card, what I pick. You actually have to run tests, either A, without them knowing it, or just general basic data across the whole board that you can take a look at, because people aren't going to know why they did something, or if they like something or don't like something. They really have no idea until it actually happens.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Have any of you ever sat in on like an actual focus group where you watch customers shop online, and like you're like behind the wall and everything, and you're watching them shop?
Well, I did a lot of usability training and testing years ago. So in a way, yes, we would record users, like customers using online stores, and so in a way, yes, but it's not entirely the same thing, because they were in a controlled environment and they were given a specific task, and then left in the room. But we would record them, record their voice, their reactions, the screen, and obviously create a heat map and etc. So it's slightly different, but yeah.
I used to sit in on them, and the only thing I always took away from them was that they were kind of a waste of time, because it was like every person did something differently, and I think the company I worked for was always waiting to find one of those like aha moments of like, oh, if we just fix this button at checkout, conversion rates are going to double. Like, this is going to be, and the only thing that you end up getting out of those is frustration with how people shop online. Like watching them not figure out how to navigate using the nav bar, and not like a glaring message in front of them about free shipping, and they're like, I wonder how much shipping's going to cost. And so similarly, like surveys I can see would be maddening, and just all of those things, trying to figure out exactly how to cater to a consumer's behavior is like, at this point in time, I feel like it's kind of a bit of a waste of time, because it's hard to, it's like what she talks about, the whole individualism is for shopping now. It seems like more and more impossible to figure that out and to cater to your customers.
We had I made a deal with a sales rep from usertesting.com where I threw him some free T-shirts for some credits, and I had a guy that was doing some conversion rate consulting for me set up a couple of user testing with those credits, and we had some super frustrating moments. Like, one was like the guy was like, he couldn't understand why his total was what it was, but he had added the product to the cart twice. I mean, it wasn't valueless. Like, we definitely, like, because you have a hard time taking yourself out of your own head in terms of seeing how other people might use the site. So there was value there, but it's still an artificial situation. You know what I mean? Because like, they're in the real world, someone's like, maybe someone's shopping scenario is, I know my son needs a Thundercats T-shirt, so I'm gonna go get a Thundercats T-shirt, and that doesn't start on our site. You know what I mean? That starts on Google. So like it's totally not a real life experience, because maybe we don't know what page they're going to land on. We don't know if they're even going to come to our site. Like, it would almost be helpful to see how do they react to the search results that they get from Google. But yeah, I don't think it was valueless, but we haven't gone back and did it again. I guess that tells you something.
Yeah, at the end of our kind of a the period when in my previous business we offered usability. We developed a simple system for validating usability of an online store, because of all the various factors that you can't really predict or take into consideration. It's almost impossible to assess the usability of a site. So we started basically counting the fucks. Pardon my French, I'm sorry, but just recording and just literally counting the fucks. And if there was like, I don't remember what the kind of the line where the line was, but if there were like more than certain amount, it's clearly not and across certain number of tests, it's just basically there's something wrong with the site. But because it was so difficult, like you say, you would have a guy who couldn't figure out why the total was double what he expected, but he added the item twice. So there's always this, and you can't factor it in the test, because the test assumes that everyone is on the same level, have same understanding of how websites work, how checkouts work, etc. And that's not true. And it's there's nothing you can do with that. So at the end we just started counting the F words, and it kind of worked. And it was the best test, like the kind of the best benchmark we ever had. But, I don't think any client would appreciate that the report is like your site generated 50 sessions. So sorry, it's crap.
You just need to make it like a fancy name, the effing coefficient, or something like that, and then.
Yeah, maybe. But.
All right, guys. Well, we're almost at an hour now, so I don't know if anyone has any closing thoughts about this riveting read that they'd like to share.
Just don't feel too bad about it, Pablo. It really wasn't.
No.
But it wasn't as bad as everyone's saying.
Yeah, Travis, I said it at the start. I'm on accepting hate mail only via snail mail. Sorry. No emails, no Skypes, no calls, nothing. Just snail mail. So hate postcards. That's which is a good business idea, by the way. We've already had the glitter, the Belgian poo-shaped chocolate, maybe not the hate cards. But I only accept hate cards.
Would you accept a bag of dicks? Did you see that post?
No. Oh, I did. Yeah, I remember the mints. Fair enough.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So, were there any other takeaway? Oh, and I guess Mark Bowker is going to be picking the next book. Is that right?
Yeah.
He is.
Cool. So, any other takeaways from this one that I missed out on from the second half of the book? Because I know, and there were quite a few. What I loved hearing was people's, and this is what I love most about when other people see something, is seeing other people's perspectives about something. So they read something, and then they may it might not have anything to do with the book, but they had some ideas, and it gleaned, So anyway, I'm curious if anybody had any aha moments or anything like that. But
yeah, I think the only thing I mentioned before was just figuring out a way to make visible like a really special offer of some kind, where I hide the checkout button or the add to cart button, and for people that aren't in the club, it would show kind of if you want to join. Here's what I was thinking was, because with Shopify I could do this. I could basically be like, okay, I'll label customers as they've ordered more than five individual orders, or they've ordered more than $100, and you can like run those auto filters in Shopify, and it like auto adds them to a group, and then I can use the group that the customer's in order to customize the button on the product pages or on the collection page, and basically be like, you know, here's this ridiculously insane offer that you don't have access to because you haven't spent enough money on our site yet, or you haven't placed enough orders. And then the idea there is hopefully that they would want to join. So that was from the part of the book where she talked about Nordstrom's having like the curtain.
Yeah.
So that was my online curtain.
Which I love. So in Shopify, that's relative. I mean, it's got to be. Is that relatively easy to do, or do you have somebody that is custom?
Yeah, it would definitely require some liquid gymnastics based on like who the customer is and stuff, but it can be done. There's some apps that I've seen work in a similar way. So I mean, it would take some effort, and I think it's hard enough that I'm not rushing to do it. But I've like written it down and documented it so that whenever I'm out of lower hanging fruit, we'll go towards that one.
Yeah, because I used to hack something very similar, basically with our loyalty program and using email, right? Which is totally archaic, but it sure would be nice to be able to have it auto recognize you from your previous history, and you only need to buy $5 more worth of crap to get to the platinum level, and next thing you know, you're going to open up all this cool stuff, and I love that idea. And I always had to use email marketing in order to do that. Basically, hey, this is what it's going to take, and it was a total hack, but it worked, and it was super effective. And it also is good for, because, well, anyway, you know this as well as I do. Who knows how, there's probably 80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers, and so, if you take care of that 20%, your revenues will increase. So I love it.
Yeah, hopefully get some of that 80% into that 20%.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, that's the thing with gamification. It does work. I think airlines can say a lot about that with the frequent flyer miles, where people sometimes when they get the email, oh, you need to kind of fly another X amount of miles, which is like, then you'll get promoted to whatever platinum. And like, I know people who would fly the longest possible route just to get that whatever amount of miles they're lacking to get to the highest level. And we don't have frequent flyer miles here, so I only know it from I don't know how it works from experience, but I hear people doing it and flying instead of direct flight, flying through another city just to get on the higher level, and I think it works really well. Especially in e-commerce, where spending extra $5 or $10 to get to the higher club, yeah, why not? So people are willing to just throw another T-shirt into the basket just for the sake of gaining those extra points.
I think it would work. You're right, and the airlines are the perfect example. Yeah, people fly to like airports and back. You know what I mean? Like they'll literally take an intercontinental flight and never leave the airport just to get the miles. The
funniest thing is, go on, sorry.
Oh no, I was just going to say my father-in-law always annoys me at December, and I asked my wife this year, I'm like, doesn't he know that Christmas is my busiest time of the year? And like, I really don't need him visiting on December 20th or whatever. And she said to me, well, he needs to get his miles in for the year. And I was like, oh, okay. There you go.
But the funny is, I read statistics somewhere that people obviously they gather those miles and they have some credits to fly for free then, or I don't know how it works, but basically the amount of unused credits or unused miles, the free miles that they amass, equals to like something like 18 trips to a moon and back or something like that, some ridiculous amount. So just people basically don't claim those rewards. They just get onto the higher tier or premium kind of a level, but they never collect those rewards anyway. It's interesting.
It's status, yeah.
It's just a status. It's just, I won it and I achieved it, but you spent twice as much as you could have just getting there, and you're not claiming your reward, your free miles or whatever that is. Yeah, it's it's interesting. So it'll definitely work. Kevin.
I will report on it once we get it live, if we do.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, you're going to wind it up, I think, a few minutes ago, Laura. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll wait and see what Mark picks. He's the next one up.
Cool.
So who hasn't picked? Kevin, have you picked one yet?
I haven't. No. I know which one I would pick because I think it's like I recommend it. It's my first recommendation. The one I talked about, the psychology of persuasion. I just think it's like I feel like it should be required reading for everybody, just because you can see how people are trying to separate you from your money.
Hmm.
Even if you aren't a business person, you know the tricks they're using on you.
You should post that one in the thread. Maybe we could read it on the side and at least discuss it like within the thread.
Yeah. The other one similar to this one is brand washing by, well, I mentioned Michael Lindstrom, and this is all about tricks brands use to get us buy more stuff. And some of this stuff is quite interesting, like the color of banana, which is artificially created to a specific Pantone color, for instance, and all that stuff. So it's I recommend
What?
this one. Yeah.
Bananas aren't really yellow? What are you trying to tell me?
No, apparently he claims that bananas are modified and grown to a specific Pantone reference. So he even gives the number, the reference number. So, and basically they through research they discovered that that's the color, that resin that we click with, and it's the color we associate with the freshness, etc. So, but he gives crazy examples like, the Coke fridges that they have in stores. What's on the side? It's the Coke logo, and then drops of water. And he says that the number of those drops, little drops, is exactly the same all over the world on every single fridge. And apparently, subconsciously, we know how many those drops there are, and that's the exact number that's required to get our brains thinking about the refresher. And it's crazy stuff. Like, whether it's true or not, I don't know. But he gives solid evidence for it. But
it's crazy.
Whether it's true or not, yeah, it is. Yeah. So
it's on my wish list.
Yeah, it's a really cool book, and his biology, which it's the book he wrote before the brand washing. That's quite good too, and
biology and brand washing.
Sorry.
So why didn't you lead with this book?
Too.
Sorry, once again.
I said, why didn't you lead with that book?
You know what? Because I've read it, so I figured. I might as well, it would be cheating if I pick a book that I know almost by heart now, just like you with the Psychology of Persuasion. I've read these two by Lindstrom.
Yeah,
and
it's
Lindstrom has
totally cheating to pick one you've already read.
Exactly, that would be cheating. He's got another book, which is kind of
making it an official rule. It has to be a book you haven't read. It's the rule.
That's the reason why I picked this one. And, and as I said, hold on. All hate mail via snail mail. Sorry, we're ending that discussion. But he's got another